Hey guys, how are you all? Laura here with Novice Garden. Got a really exciting project today, one of my favourite in fact for the year, and that is planting my potatoes. So I like to grow my potatoes in grow sacks, just right out here in the back garden, in my really nice small urban back garden. I always get a really great yield from them. Usually tend to grow around 7 to 8 bags. I'm going to take you through the entire process in a second. Usually tend to grow around 7 or 8 bags. And that is enough for usually to feed ourselves from around about midsummer through till perhaps like January or February. That usually kind of takes care of all our potato needs, which is great. It's nice not to have to buy them from the shops. And as I said, it really only takes up about 7 or 8 grow bags, which is amazing. So first of all, I'm going to get started by clearing a space here, which has got a little bit of kind of just odds and ends piled up in it at the moment. So we're going to clean that up, then we're going to plant the potatoes together, and I'll let you know which varieties I'm using and the amendments for the soil and things that I use. So totally forgot to say that it's actually mid-May here, which is perfect time because in our area that means we're past all chance of a kind of late frost. We're getting nighttime temperatures of about 7 or 8 degrees still, which is still pretty chilly, but it's perfect for potatoes. As long as it doesn't go below freezing, they'll be fine. So just make sure that you're past your last frost date in your area, and that is a great time to start planting your potatoes. Before we go into potato planting, I'm actually just going to give you a really quick look around the garden because, as I said, it's mid-May and that is about the time of year where things start to kind of burst into life again. You can probably see behind me we've got some green again, which is so nice. Let's take a look. Look at those clouds. Oh, it looks stormy. Okay, so this is the space right here that we are going to grow potatoes in. So you can see it is really not big at all. Previously it was occupied by a lot of this stuff that you can see over on the right hand side, which is garden debris. You know, pots that don't have anything in them yet, offcuts of wood, bamboo stakes, that kind of thing. So it lies right behind this bed that I have in front of us here, which has perennials and grasses in it. And it is literally just, I mean, you'd be lucky if it is kind of 6 foot by 1 foot. This space here, it's on the other side of a walkway that you can see there, which badly needs power wash. Anyway, we're going to line up about 6 or 7 grow bags in here, and that is where we are going to plant and grow this year's crop of potatoes. So as I said earlier, the potatoes that we grow here generally look after our family's potato needs for about 6 months. It's great. We store them in a dark, cold area in the house, and that lasts us from like mid to late summer right the way through until probably January next year. So great. It's definitely one of the things that I highly recommend doing, even if you just have a small space like what I've just shown you now. That is big enough to grow. You know, we're a family of 3 and it looks after all of our potato needs, which is fab. So if you have a little space, even if it's a driveway, whatever you have, grab yourself some grow bags and some compost and some seed potatoes, and now is the time to get them in. Quick look at what we're going to be using. So I've got some potato fertilizer, which is 100% organic. I've got my seed potatoes. Now the variety on the left hand side are Cara. Written that down, even though it looks like lava, it actually says Cara. So these ones are main crop and Charlotte's are first secondaries, but I kind of treat them as a main crop and works out fine for us. I like the fact that these ones are great for, so Cara are great for boiling, roasting, mashing, chipping, basically a great all-rounder, whereas the Charlotte variety, which is the ones on the right hand side here, they're better for like salad potatoes, boiling, making into potato salad, that kind of thing. They're more of a new potato style. Both are amazing though. I've grown In fact, no, I'm absolutely lying to you. I've grown Charlottes before. I've never grown Cara, but I've grown similar to Cara before, and it's worked out pretty well. So we've got fertilizer, our seed potatoes. Down here I've got some peat-free multi-purpose compost, and over here in this giant pile, these are our grow sacks. Now, these are plastic grow sacks which I have used many times and will use many times again. So plan is to get another use out of these. You can see here they're kind of that tarpaulin like texture. Sorry for the noise in the background. They're kind of like a tarpaulin type texture plastic with holes in the bottom, along with lots of spiders. You can see the holes that they have in the bottom there, and just to let water drain through them. Now there's a couple of different ways you can actually grow potatoes in these, and I'm going to chat to you a little bit right now about which way I'm going to be doing it. Before we go on to the process of planting the potatoes, I wanted to talk you through chitting your potatoes, which is a process which means that you take your potatoes and you place them in egg trays, or even just on a windowsill themselves. The egg trays help to keep them upright and protect the emerging chits. But what you want to do is expose them to sunlight, and that will start to encourage the formation of these little knobbly chits that you can see growing out of them, and that will eventually become the foliage or the plants. It just enables you to kickstart your growing process. So as I said, there's a couple different ways you can grow potatoes in grow sacks and in the ground. Actually, you can use the hilling up method, which is what I'll be doing, which is where if you're growing them in the ground, you would dig a small trench, plant your seed potatoes down that trench, and then gradually, as the foliage starts to appear, as the plants grow, you would hill up or cover them with more and more compost until you get these little mounds. And what that does is it encourages the potatoes to grow in layers, so you're technically supposed to get more tubers. I'm not sure if that's entirely correct. I've never tried the other method. And the other method is to just dig a hole, plant your seed potatoes, and leave them to it. So I know there are gardeners out there who do that and have great success, but I just personally use the hilling up method. So what we're going to do in terms of grow bags is we're going to add about half a foot of compost, half a foot to a foot, around about between those measurements, and we're going to add that into the bottom of our grow bags, plant our seed potatoes, about 2 to 3 per bag, and then we're going to cover that with around another, I don't know, few inches perhaps of compost. And then when we start to see some foliage coming through, we're going to let that grow until you can see a fair amount of foliage. Then we're going to cover that completely with more compost and keep doing that until you reach the top of the bag. Technically that means we should get lots and lots of lovely layers of potatoes. You'll have to join me towards the end of the summer to see if that's correct. Anyway, let's get to it. So in the end, I ended up going for about half a foot, maybe 3/4 of a foot of compost in the bottom of each grow sack. Some of it did go on the path as well, but we'll sweep that up later. Now, are you ready for my super accurate measurement of fertilizer? That'll do. mix that all thoroughly through. Alright, so you can see them all behind me, all lined up, ready to go. So as I said, I decided on 6 in the end. And I've added my compost, I've added my organic fertiliser. Now we're going to add the seed potatoes. So I'm going to do 2 to 3 per bag. I think it's probably going to be on the 3 side of things. Normally I would just say 2, but because we decided to go with 3 grow bags instead of 7 or 8, 6 instead of 7 or 8, I'm gonna add 3 potatoes to each one. Haven't found that that's caused me any problems in the past. Some gardeners do say that the more seed potatoes you add per bag, the smaller the potatoes that you'll get. That hasn't happened for me, so I think it's probably just down to your situation. But that's what we're gonna do today anyway. Let's plant them. I genuinely have not even planted a single potato yet, and look. Disgusting. These potatoes have been allowed to chit. I explained that process a little bit earlier in the video. We are going to plant with the chits facing upwards, as much as that is possible. These are on the exact opposite ends of this potato. So I think I'm going to just put it down on its side like so, and the chits will find their way up. So you want to space them out like so, and then we'll come back and push them down into the soil in a second. I've just planted my first 3 grow sacks with the Charlotte potatoes, and the next 3 I am planting my Cara variety of potatoes. And what's worked out really well is that I had enough seed potatoes to do 3 Charlottes per bag, and I have just enough potatoes to do 2 Caras for the last 3 grow bags. And that's actually very fortunate because the Cara variety of potato is a larger potato in nature than the Charlotte, so this will give them slightly more room in the grow bags versus the Charlotte potatoes, which are actually a much smaller new potato style of potato. So they should be fine with 3 per grow sack. I've got all of my potatoes planted. You can see them all lined up. 6 bags, 3 of the Cara variety, which are main crop, and 3 of the Charlotte variety, which are secondaries, I think, but I'm going to treat them as main crop. Fudging the rules a little bit. In terms of care for the potatoes in the grow bags, I'll check them probably every 2nd or 3rd day to see if they need watered. Potatoes are thirsty, so that is one thing that you need to keep on top of, especially in grow bags versus in the ground. So I'll probably check them every 2 or 3 days to see if they need watered. I'm not going to feed them again, that's it. That'll be them until the end of their growing season. I will, as I mentioned before, hill them up with more compost as soon as I start to see some decent amount of foliage coming through. And as you saw, I rolled the bags down, so they're around halfway rolled down at the moment. And at the end of our growing process, they'll be all the way fully up and full of compost and hopefully potatoes. So I'm looking forward to our harvest, which will be probably like end of September, maybe even we might harvest in some from August onwards. Actually, I'll double check the grow times of the potatoes that I've planted today, and I'll put them on the screen for you so you know exactly how long they should take. But generally speaking, once the foliage starts to die back and yellow, you know that they're done. And you can leave them in the ground then. You can leave them in the sacks or in the ground and dig them up as and when you need to. But it's not great to leave them out in a frost. So as long as you lift them before the first frost comes, you can leave them in the ground and just harvest them as and when you need to. That's generally what we do until winter time, when we lift them all and store them in our house. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you again for our harvest video. Please join me for that. And that is all from me. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I hope it inspires you to grow your own potatoes, even in a very small space like what I've done today. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Hello, me again, just popping on really quickly to say one last super important thing is... one last super important thing is don't let sunlight get to your potatoes as they're growing. So you have to make sure they're very well covered with compost. Not the foliage, obviously, the actual tubers, the potatoes themselves. As they're forming, if they're exposed to sunlight, they'll turn green, and that is actually pretty toxic and poisonous if eaten in large quantities. That's why you should never eat green potatoes in the supermarket. So that's a really important tip, is to just always make sure you keep the potatoes well covered and not exposed to any sunlight as they're growing. Okay, bye for now.